About the compound interest, we're not really focusing on those exercises, more like a little bit extension on what index will do. Okay, so this is some application questions. It's not really calculation anymore. So let's talk about the compound interest. So what is compound interest? Compound interest is like, for example, you have $100, and then in the bank it offers compound interest, which means the interest will go into your principal and help you to earn money for next year. So you have 100 at the start of this year, and then you have 5% of the interest rate. Then at the end of the year, you will have $105 in total. $5 is the interest and $100 is your principal. But then they will both become your principal and then keep earning money for the next year. So we can have a look for 4 years. Okay, compound interest, the interest produced from the previous years will become the principal to yield interest for the later years. So we have 100 compound at 10%, which is impossible now. Like, I think the bank interest now is about 1% to 2%. So it's really low. So it's not going to have 10% like interest rate, which is not real but easy for our calculation. So 10% for 4 years. So at the end of the first year, let's think we have 100 plus 5. So what I will do is actually 100 times by 1.05, 1.1, so no, 5%, 10%. So I have 11 tenths. So 110 in total in the end of first year. Okay, and then because 10% is 100 times 1 plus 10%. Well, if you can see, if you still can't see it, I can say it is 100 plus 100 times 10%. Well, that's the principal, that's the interest, that's the amount of money you have in the end of the first year. So you have 100 times by 1 plus 10% by factorize it. And then what you have is 100 times 1.1, and you have $110 at the end of the first year. So then the first year you use, the second year you use $110 to earn interest. So 110 plus 110 times 10%. So your 10% interest help you to earn 10% of your interest will be the next year's interest. So 110 times by 1 plus 10%, and that gives you 110 times 1.1. I think that gives you 1 to 1 maybe? 1 to 1. That will be 11 times 11. If you remember square number, that will be 1 to 1. And then the 1 to 1 become the money you have at the end of the second year. So for the third year, I will start to use 1 to 1 to earn interest. Then 1 to 1 times 1 plus 10%. That equals to 1 to 1 times by 1.1. So we have 1 to 1 times 11, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 0, 1, 3, 3.1. Okay, that's the amount of money you have in the end of the third year. And then 133.1 plus 133.1 times by 10%. And that gives you 133.1 times 1 plus 10% equals to 133.1 times by 1.1. I'm not going to calculate that one. But can you see the pattern here? Yeah. So what's the money you will have in the end of the 10th year? Can you give me an equation? Think about this. Okay, that's the end of the first year. That's the end of the second year. That's the end of the third year, and that's the end of the fourth year. What will happen at the end of 10th year? How many 1.1 you have times onto 100? Calculate that, count that. Okay, the 100 go to times 1.1, right? For the end of the first year. And then 110 to come here. So it's actually 100 times 1.1 and then times another 1.1. You have times 2 1.1, right? To give you the end of the second year. So how you get the 1-to-1 is the 100 times 1.1 times 1.1 and then times another 1.1 to give you the third year. Yeah? Yeah? Yes, it's 1.1 to the power of 10. So end of 10th year, what I'll have is 100 times 1.1 to the power of 10. You just keep times 1.1, accumulate that, okay? So you keep times 1.1 to the previous year, to the previous year. So what's 1.1? 1.1 is actually the 1 plus the 10%. Okay, it means the principal. 1 is the principal, and then 10% is the interest rate. Okay, it's the interest. So it's 1 share of the principal and 10% of the principal. So it's 1 plus 10% give you the 1.1. So if you think at the end of the nth year, the formula will just be 100 times 1.1 to the power of n. 1.1 to the power of n. So therefore we have this formula here. Okay, we have this formula here. That's the formula for compound interest. That's all what we need to learn today. Okay, what we want to learn today. So A is the total amount and P is the principal. And then 1 plus R over 100, which is R%. That's 1 plus the interest rate. You see, we have 1.1 before. That's how many times you will earn, like in the first year, second year. And then to the power of n is after how many years? After 1 year, you times with that rate. After another year, you times another rate. So that will be just to the power of n. Okay, so that's the formula we use to earn principals. Okay, let's have a look at the next question here. So calculate the number of periods and the rate of interest over per period for the following. Okay, this question is very interesting. It said paid annually, paid biannually, paid quarterly, and paid monthly, and paid fortnightly. I'll just do 1 or 2 with you. Like the annually one is the one you must remember. But for the rest, let's have a think about, do you want the interest to be paid in the shorter period or longer period? Shorter. Why you want the shorter period? That you increase your principal, okay? That increase your principal. Think about, well, $10, okay? I want to earn $10 for a year. Like say it's for $10 is not good. Like say $12, 12%. Okay, $100 give you 12% of the interest rate. Each month is $1, right? So what you do is, if you pay you at the end of the year, okay? If pay you at the end of the year, you will get this $12 in one time. You have $112. But if pay you every month, this $1 will accumulate early in the month, and then the $1 will start generate money after the first month. And after the second month, $2 will help you to generate money. And then after 3 months, $3 can help you generate money. So you just have like principal keep increasing during the year. So for the paid annually one, your interest is just paid once, and then you only have $100 as principal from the 0 months to the 12 months. But if you paid your monthly, your money of principal is actually increase every year. Okay, it's increase every year. So that's why we want to pay for shorter period. But how we can calculate that? Well, if say it's a 3 par over 10 years paid annually. Questions? No. So 3% paid 10 years annually. So that's the normal one. So, okay, calculate the number of periods, paid period. So will over n will just equals to 10. You will be paid 10 times. Okay, 10 times. Okay, and calculate the interest offered per period. Well, the interest offered per period, this interest R is just equals to 3%. Because it's paid annually and the interest rate annually rate is 3%, that's no problem. So what we will have for the A will equals the principal of times 1 plus 3% to the power of 10. It will accumulate 10 times. Okay, it will accumulate 10 times because over 10 years we paid every year. So that's the principal times 1 plus the interest rate to the power of n. Okay, let's have a think about the next one. 6 power over 3 years paid biannually. So what means by biannually? Twice a year. Okay, so how many times you will get paid over 3 years? 6 times. Let's think about the interest rate. Interest rate is 6% per year. Let's have a think. If you have $100, how much money you will receive in the middle of the year? So you save $100 for half year at an interest rate of 6%. How much you will receive? Half year. $3. 6% is up. If you put 100 here in the bank for a whole year, then you receive $6. But you only receive here for 3 years, which means 3 years, half year. So which means you only have $3 earned. So the interest rate is not 3% for half year. It's actually 3% for half year. Okay, so you have paid 6 times, but for each payment period, you can't receive 6%. Well, like it's too good. Okay, some other people receive $6 for a whole year, but you receive $6 for half year. Like we won't do like that. So you have the period. So you also need to have the interest rate. So in this case, A will be P1 plus 3%, then to the power of 6. You not think about things in years. You think about in paid period. So how many times you will get paid? You will be paid for 6 times. So for each period, you will receive money. So what's the interest rate for that period? That period is only 3% because it's only half year. Okay, so for the whole year you have 6%, half you only have 3%. Okay, next question. You paid quarterly. So how many times you get paid?
4.
Over 3.5 years. Yeah. So 3.5 times 4. Like 1 year you will pay 4 times. So that's a 14. Okay, you'll be paid 14 times. But have to think about the interest rate. The interest rate for a whole year is 10.5 per. What's the interest rate for a quarter of the year? Like, what do you need to do? So give me the equation. You don't need to calculate. 4%. That's right. So I think that's 2.65. Wait. No, 25. 625. So your principal will the amount of money received is principal 1 plus 2.625%, then to the power of 14 times. Okay, to the power of 14 times. Okay, so 12% over 5 years paid monthly. So paid monthly, so how many times you get paid? 12 times a year, so 5 years, so 60 times. So what's the interest rate for each month? 1%. So 12% for a year, 1% for 1 month. So A will be principal 1 plus 1% to the power of 16. Okay. Next one. How many weeks are there in a year? 52 weeks, right? So if it paid fortnightly, how many times you will get paid over 2 years? Over 2 years. Still 52, right? So 52, you get 26 payment a year. Then over 2 years is 52 payment. Okay, but the interest rate, what's the interest rate? What's the interest rate? Divide by? Divide by what? 26. Because a year has been cut into 26 lines, so yeah, like it's the calculation. I want to see the method. Yeah, it's 0.16. 16. Okay, so a year has been cut into a period of 26 times, and then you would divide that by 26 to see the interest. So A will be principal 1 plus 0.16% to the power of 52. Okay, last one. 5.2 over 3 years paid weekly. So how many times get paid? So 52 times by 3 years. That's 156. Okay, and then what's the interest rate? Yeah. So that's 0.1%. 0.1%. So the amount of money you have is the principal times 1 plus 0.1% and then to the power of 156. Okay, that's how the interest rate works. Let's have a look at example 4. You can do example 2 and 3 by yourself. They are quite easy. Let's have a look at example 4. Double your money. Determine to the nearest whole number of years the length of time it would take to do this using the compound interest formula at an interest rate of 12%. Okay, so what you want to achieve is you have some money, you want to double the money. Okay, over how many years you can double the money? Okay, we assume we paid annually, the interest paid annually, and then we have an interest rate of 12%. We don't know, do you think this period of time will be affected by the amount of money you have at the beginning? Do you think that will affect that? Do you think that if I have $100, I want to make into $200, the time I use will be different from if I have $1,000 and then I want to make it into $2,000? Do you think there's a difference between the period of time? No. Okay? It's just double my money. It doesn't matter what I have at the beginning. You have more money, you generate more interest, and then you reach like 2,000 quicker. So what you have is, if you have like P, like at the beginning, okay, principal P. What I want to achieve is to achieve 2P, okay? So I want P times 1 plus 12% to the power of some n, and then the money I have to achieve is 2p. That's the equation I will have. So I have p. Okay, this is the principal like interest formula, compound interest formula. That's the amount of money p, and then I will have this interest rate, and then to the power of n. Okay, the amount of money I want to receive is 2p because the n is still varying, so I can just solve for this. So I have p and n in one equation, which I can't solve. But what I will do is 1 plus 12% n. I can divide p on both sides, so I just have that. So when you have that, you need to solve that by calculators because it's asking nearest whole number of years. So menu number 3 algebra and number 1 solve. We're trying to solve for that function. We put a bracket. 1 plus 12% is 0.12, which to the power of, well, I can change it into x, to the power of x equals to 2. And then remember the comma x. We want to solve for x, we need to put comma x to solve. Okay, that's the answer. 6.116, so 6 years. So after 6 years at that percentage, you will double the money. Okay, you double the money. Okay, well, number 3 and number 2 are very easy if you understand example 1. Yep. Everything is possible in the notes. Everything is possible in the notes. No, well, it will not going to be like really complex thing. Like you don't need your calculator. You're not going to solve something like this. Maybe something. Think about like exponential make the same base, equalize the power. You can have something like that. So you won't use the you won't need the calculator. Any other questions? Okay, if no, I'll just stop that.